I don't think any of us would have predicted, last January as we were approaching the gathering, quite what this year would be like. So I'm hoping everybody out there has been staying healthy and strong and surviving the some of the isolation that goes along with what we've been doing. Yeah, I know here in the DC area, the numbers have gone up and down, and folks are getting a little stir crazy and wanting to get out and get back to normal and get back to traveling overseas. I know I've had that I've canceled 2 trips myself, so it's been something. And as far as the organization goes, we've had to adapt. And I think obviously I enjoy looking at everything in your newsletters and on Facebook and the other mediums to see what the chapters are doing and to get creative and engage all of our entire community. The board's adapted as well. We after the gathering, which we held, most of you, those of you that were there will know, we held that right on the kind of the cusp of as the pandemic began to worsen. And so we were really wringing our hands in advance of that as to whether we should cancel or not. We ultimately chose to continue it. And it was the survivors out there, raise your hand if you're a survivor. Yeah. We had not only the pandemic to deal with, we had a blizzard that rolled in, but we all survived that, and we all got down off the mountain safely, and everybody got home and was well after that. So after that, things kind of went into almost, I think Barb called it Camino on ice. We've all just been kind of in a holding pattern. Our July board meeting we held virtually, the first time we'd done that, and so we used Zoom to make that happen. And it was actually one of our more productive meetings, I think, because we stayed focused. In the meetings, we shortened it just a little bit. But one thing we did miss was sort of that personal interaction and those conversations that occur between the sessions and the conversations and the interactions that occur sort of informally in the evenings. And so they're a little bit missing there, but I think we were effective, and we're actually continuing that this October. We're having another virtual meeting. And over the course of the next year, we're going to monitor conditions and obviously go figure out when we can get and meet in person again.
Go ahead.
The conditions will drive that. As you know, I think most of you know, we made the tough decision to cancel the gathering in 2021. That takes about a year of planning. And so with the conditions and all the uncertainty, it just, we couldn't see our way clear to have that. And as things have played out, it looks like that was the right decision to make. There is planning in progress for July 2021 celebration. And we're hoping to get back to our in-person gathering, a national gathering in 2022, targeting Asheville, North Carolina for that, and Black Mountain actually. So that's just in a nutshell of just some highlights as to at least what the board's been thinking about and working on. We can get into some details in the specific areas as we go through the discussion, but I just want to at least give you kind of an overview. Any questions or comments on that?
Got 2022 Black Mountain at the YMCA, that beautiful facility they have there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're targeting.
Yeah, that was really nice.
That was a beautiful. We've had experience there, and the folks there have been really. We were looking there for 2021 initially, and they were really helpful with us in trying to make the decision as to how to proceed. And they're enthusiastic about having us back in 2022. So,
is there anticipation of a quarter or a month?
It'll be the spring time frame. So we'll look at the March-April time frame of 22.
Okay, great. Thank you. March, April of 2022.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think the original question, which I meandered from, was how does the board function? I would say fairly well. We're actually getting along really well. we're back up to 11 members now. It's an 11-member board, and the bylaws allow us to waver between 5 members and 11 members. And I think we got down to a low of 7 or 8. And you saw the advertisement go out. We selected 3 board members this past summer. And so we're really happy to have them on board. It helps spread out the workload. It helps vary the ideas and things that we consider. And I know through our first meeting, we did an orientation with them, and they just jumped right in with both feet to help work on sort of the vision and developing the vision going forward. We do our work by dividing into committees, and like any good group, I think for a while there, we had about 9 different committees. So picture that, 11 people, 9 committees, a lot of overlap and duplication. So I think it was a year and a half now or so ago that we split our work into 3 categories. One was pilgrim engagement. The second is Camino support. And the third is sort of the executive functions of the board and the governance functions of the board. So by dividing it that way, it just sort of brings it into functional areas and allows us to focus a little differently on those 3 branches of the organization to help move us forward. Questions on that at all? Bill or Jackie, do you have anything to add? Or Tom?
Or Bill?
Actually, I don't have anything to add. I mean, I think I think it covers it.
I think you said it. Sounded good to me.
Any questions from
Yeah,
anybody?
I mean, I guess
I have a
some of the
question.
Key committees.
Oh.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike. That's fine. We're gonna-
No, I was just going to ask if you mentioned, Dave, that you were going to be the board's meeting in October. And is there a particular subject or something that you're following up on that's really important to take care of for the October board meeting? I'm just curious. What are you
Sure,
going to be talking about?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in July, we really we started digging in to sort of under the new environment, in this new COVID environment, and not knowing how long this is going to last. We tried starting to form a vision for what does 2021 look like, because as you might imagine, in this environment, the membership numbers, the dues paying members numbers are going down slightly. Our donations are going down slightly, although not as much as we maybe anticipated. So that's a good surprise. We have a lot of folks hanging in there and helping support the organization. And so we're trying to look out and forward and go, okay, well, what does 2021 look like? How do we change the way we reach out to pilgrims? How do we go support the chapters in that outreach? How do we go reach out with our international partners to continue to support the Camino? Because as you might imagine, with everything going on in the world and the reduced numbers on the Camino, there are lots of projects and lots of municipalities in Spain and albergues in Spain looking for some additional support. So I think our grants program is going to continue to be incredibly important going forward. And so we're trying to think about what does this look like going forward, and how do we go sustain this? In addition to that, now that we're looking at tools like Zoom and we can do less in-person things, we're trying to figure out how to go leverage sort of different mediums to reach our members and potential members for that matter. And so you'll notice in our last, I'll be the first to say I had things to learn, but we sent out an email to all the members with an update on the Camino, and we tried a video. So Sarah and I recorded a video, and I laughed when I read it, when I watched it, because I had my notes kind of off to the left, and this is how we're learning how to use Zoom, right? My eyes kept darting left, to look at my notes. And I think we looked scared a little bit, but we decided to go ahead and put that out just to show kind of what we're going through, right? As we try to flex and learn how to use some of these other technologies. So So this particular board meeting, we started last board meeting talking about that and trying to form our ideas. In the interim, small groups of board members have been getting together and talking with folks and working in their different areas to figure out how to put that vision together. And so the October board meeting is going to sort of finalize that vision of how do we want to go through the next year or so? What do we want to look like at the end of 21? And along with that, we go work the budget. We take the numbers from 2020 and we say, okay, what is that? What do those trends look like for 2021? And maybe Bill can talk a little bit more about how we go through that process. But we try to marry the budget to the goals, and then we set off and try to go make that happen. Does that make sense?
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
Add to that, Dave, if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
One of the three things that Dave talked about: pilgrim engagement, communal support, and governance. I think a lot of what we're looking at and trying to work on mostly, I think, is really centers around pilgrim engagement. And how do we do that in an environment where people are not going on the Camino? It's also to how do we lever off of the enthusiasm of the chapters and other technology, frankly, like Zoom and other things that we traditionally or typically haven't done in the past. So we're looking to learn and embrace technology in a different way than we probably haven't done so much in the past, just because people are on the Camino and so it's really a fulsome look at how we're going to go through this next year or so and keep people engaged and continue to build community around and despite the fact that people are not able to go on the Camino. So that's really a key part of this, I think.
One of the things we're trying, and you'll see this come out soon, and we're hoping you can use this with your chapters, that we can leverage, put some of the pieces out on Facebook and other mediums. We're going to have a conversation with George Greenia, and I've always said with George, I could sit and listen to him read the phone book. So, so we're going to do that. We're going to have him actually sit and read the phone. But no, actually, we're gonna have a conversation with him. He did a TED Talk back in February, and you can look it up. And we're going to put a link on our website to this TED Talk, and it was called "Modern Pilgrimage: The Quest and the Guest." And I listened to that TED Talk as we were bouncing this idea back and forth, and it was really inspiring because it talked, especially in this time when we can't travel, it talked about what is modern pilgrimage and how do we, what are sort of those attributes of pilgrimage that attracted us in the first place, what constitutes a pilgrim in modern language, and what things can we do in this era when we can't travel to find those same attributes here at home. And so I thought that was interesting in a number of ways. One, I think as we engage in the conversation, what I'm hoping to do is have experienced folks look at that and think back to, what is it that attracted us to this? What are those attributes of pilgrimage that we're looking for that make so many people crave it or go after it? And then for new folks, I think we're trying to, in that conversation, help folks sort of identify with what are we talking about when we say, I'm a pilgrim. So if you go back to our vision statement, right? Our vision statement is to inspire all those who seek the spirit of the Camino to join the global community of pilgrims. For an American, I think that can be kind of daunting, right? I even find when I first started talking about it to, folks at work or just folks out in town, they look at you a little funny when you say I'm an American pilgrim, right? They think something different. Which isn't the same if you're in Europe or elsewhere. And so a little bit through the conversation, we're trying to help people see, number one, what is it that's so attractive about this? Why would I want to call myself a pilgrim? Why would I want to join this community? And we're going to try to bring that out through conversation with George. And what we're going to do then is take that video and hopefully divide it up into smaller bites and put it out in our different mediums. We're going to take the video and send it out to members, send it to the chapter coordinators, and then you guys can hopefully you find that useful in helping to share with your all the participants in the chapters. So that's one way that we're thinking about how do we go reach people a little differently than maybe we used to. Does that make sense?
Sure.
All right, good. What else you got, Dave? What else do you want to talk about? Does anybody have any particular questions over that for any of the board members here?
Could you repeat the name of that TED Talk again, please?
Sure, yeah. The TED Talk is called Modern Pilgrimage, The Quest and the Guest.
Thank you.
It's on YouTube. Encourage you to go look it up. It's
In the chat. It's in the chat also.
Christine posted it in the chat. You can look it up.
Perfect. Yeah, great.
Dave, are any chapters doing events such as walks or hikes or anything like that you know of?
Yeah,
And,
Billy.
and how are you going about, if so, can you just give us some insight as to what best practices might be to be able to do that?
Yeah, Bill, you want to take that one?
Yeah, Tampa Bay did a walk this past weekend. I wasn't able to go, but John and Joni went ahead and led that with a limited number of people. John, do you want to speak up on that?
Sure. We've thought pretty long and hard about the best way to approach that, and we wanted to get restarted because we wanted to maintain some enthusiasm within the chapter. I think probably we all feel that.
Yeah.
So we focused on a place where it was not particularly congested. We could do a walk in the park. And everyone wore masks when we sort of congregated. And then when we walked,
and we stayed socially distant.
We stayed socially distant. And then when we walked, people spaced out pretty well and took off their masks and sort of maintained pretty good distance. And then at the end, when we recongregated, everybody put the masks back on, and it was actually a great event. People really enjoyed it. We're really glad to be back at it. And they said to us, when is our next event? Now, that's the first event that we had in the beginning of March.
So this is Sharon from Tucson. And so we generally take a break over the summer. And it was the real dilemma. We've had, so we took some cues from you guys and have set up established, regularly scheduled events. So we have a regularly scheduled event on one of the local pathways in the neighborhood. In the city. We just started a coffee in the park. We had our first hike. Now I think of a hike as on a path, right? So it's narrow. We've had walks and we've been together on areas that were more like roads where we could walk alongside. But our first hike was this past weekend. It was limited to 10. I had 2 people. I said, you've got to wear, you have to wear a mask.
Right.
And they were okay. That was part of the deal. Limited to 10 people. I was really nervous. We had a very serious forest fire this summer. So most of our hiking paths have been closed down. So I was a little worried about this, putting people on a congested hiking path. But it was okay. Everybody was compliant. Everybody worked well together. But I have found that it's funny because this moving to these normally scheduled events, which is something we've never done before. It was like, okay, well, but saying on the second Saturday of every month at 7 a.m., we're walking to Milan. Meet us there. The kind of standard for a lot of you guys, like Charlotte and places like that. We had never gone that path. people are saying we love having something finally on the calendar that we can look forward to. And everybody shows up, everybody has their masks on, and it's quite rewarding because you feel like you're somehow giving people something to look forward to. So anyway, we're good. And actually we met, the coordinators met this past week. We're going to have another field trip this next week about our holiday gathering. Now, of course, we're in Tucson, so everything's outside. For everything that we are scheduling is either Zoom or outside. So we are having, we think we've got a couple of medical professionals that we're going to consult with on protocols. But we're going to have a holiday gathering out at one of the campgrounds, the group site at the campground, which means that we've got our own bathroom. We have our own tables. We have our own parking areas. We've got, so it kind of excited about that. I mean, everybody seems to be pretty excited. And we've got, I call them the canaries in the coal mine, you know, the really nervous people about COVID. If we can make a protocol that they're comfortable coming to the holiday gathering, then I think we're good. So, so yeah, I mean, but like I said, we're in Tucson, and a lot of you guys are faced with the winter time, and winter time is our active time. So, we'll see how it goes.
Has anyone done more than 10? So on a typical walk for us, we would have 50 or 60 people show up.
Yeah, and I don't allow that. We shut it off at 10. We have events. Well, so that's the hike. The second Saturday Tumamoc walk, that's a public access path.
Thank you.
And there can easily be 400 people walking up and down this path at any given time. So but I can't control those people. They're not my responsibility, but yeah, I think everyone, I mean, we have the luxury of having a sensitive group of people that are okay with saying, no, it's limited. Sorry, you can't come. They accept that. That might not be the way it goes in the fall, in the spring, but yeah, we've never had that sort of issue here in Tucson.
Great.
Those kind of those numbers.
Thank you. We haven't had a walk. We haven't had a walk since March, so we're at a point where I want to get out and walk.
And you'll probably want to check whatever your governor's executive order is. That's how we decided it had to be 10, because that's including the leader.
And that's our general number. With the holiday gathering, we're 30.
I thought you were gonna put a shirt on.
It's just no shirt.
Yes, please put a shirt
You're
on.
comfortable. Sorry.
Is everyone aware that we have issued guidance around hikes and outside activities that back in June or late May, that the board actually, we issued guidance that was based on what Sharon had said about local ordinances that allowing outside activities. So that was part of this. And then also we put out some guidance around what people should be doing and how they organized hikes. Okay. So there's a bunch of them, and I'm happy to send that out again. If people, there's a link. It's on on our webpage under local chapters at the bottom. There's a thing that Gene McCulloch and I worked on a few months ago about this and how hiking should be or walk should be arranged. And some of the things that are in there are basically your grouping shouldn't exceed 10 people. So if you have 50 people, that means you're sending 10 people at a time. You stagger start times, different options in terms of hikes, segregate people in the slower, faster hikes, make sure people aren't carpooling, look at low density areas to hike, stay home, tell people to stay home. Here's things you should tell people. Obviously wear masks and social distance, hand sanitizer, things like that. So, and there's other guidance it's pretty similar to what the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and the Pacific Crest Trail Association recommendations. So those are other options for people to look at. The one question that came up recently was someone asked me if it was okay to have a gathering, have a get together or an event inside at a restaurant. And I answered them, and I basically said I don't think it's it's not really a good idea today to do that. I would probably discourage it in some respects, just because based on what I had seen from the CDC, that it's definitely a higher risk along the risk scale. It's a higher risk event if you have it indoors instead of outside. So
it's hard to eat with a mask on.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think Joyce knows that we can see her eating her French fries.
So there is.
But you're the featured speaker. Actually, the sound of you eating French fries is over.
And the other thing is, I am aware that various chapters have been hiking, right? And I don't have numbers in terms of, but I think there are a good number of them have been doing hikes over the summer. I know in the West, Chicago's doing it. David, I think you've had some hikes, right? There have been walks and hikes that we do, and in Chicago, everybody wear masks and everybody social distance, and they're real careful around making sure that we take the appropriate precautions. So
I have a member who organizes a hike the first Monday of every month, and snow, rain, sleet, doesn't make any difference. And it's in a state park that's actually located in the city of Indianapolis. And she does that and follows all the rules. And, we'll have usually about 10 people show up on that.
We have, we've got three events, walking events that use essentially roads that are not really highly populated with cars during the normal time. So those are kind of, we're not requiring RSVPs. We're not limiting the number of people that show up because it's so nice and wide. When you're on a hiking trail and you're in tight contact with people that you're passing, that's where we're limiting and are more concerned. But if we're walking on what's essentially a 2-lane road up a national park that's really not being used right now because we're using it after dark, or the researchers aren't driving up and down in the hours that we're walking, it kind of gives us some freedom. So I'm just, I'm mentioning that to kind of make you think about, do you have resources? They're not, I wouldn't think of those. I don't think of Tumamoc and Sentinel Peak and Sabino as hikes. They're walks, but they're very Camino-esque. But they're a little bit more. I feel like we can be a little bit more relaxed about the COVID vigilance. Everybody puts on a mask, but people can walk beside one another.
Oh, that's okay, buddy.
And talk. They don't have to, and so it I'm just mentioning it to maybe you can find something creative, some places where you can gather and walk beside one another without being too concerned. You don't want to beat people with sticks too often.
Yeah, we actually can walk along the levees of the Sacramento River, which are quite wide, and so that's not a problem. I'm just trying to get a comfort level of how many people I can allow to come and walk with me. So
Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
because you
hard.
have to keep a 6 feet social distance. I mean,
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, we've had a hard time in New York City. It's just been impossible.
So I have
Impossible.
so I'm a docent at one of the areas here, and I call it when I'm teaching the kids, I call it my staff of power. But real, it's like a 6-foot tall wooden hiking stick, but it allows me to be able to point things out more easily to the kids, and I don't forget it like I do my hiking poles. But you can use that. You can go get away, distance, people, distance. But we've had good compliance. But that nice big heavy hiking stick, you can beat people hard with it. Threaten them to back up.
I posted
That-
the
that-
guidance in the chat, so if people
It
haven't seen it, it's there.
It actually is not part of the guidance to beat your members with a
Yeah.
stick.
No, not actually beating them, threatening. Threatening is a good parental technique.
Right.
You just make sure that they know that you are capable of.
Is the
Dave-
liability insurance
Dave
covering
Cook.
that?
Dave Cook, Gene's been trying to get in to ask a question.
Yeah,
Rachel,
I've been doing that. I'd like to jump in here.
okay.
We need to be following local rules. If your local rules say an event will be 10 people or fewer, that's what we need to be following. I don't think it should depend on where we are. If you have organized an event, it's a single event, you need to be following the rules. Two of us scouted out a hike here last Friday. It was in the middle of nowhere. And about 24 hours later, the mayor of Denver lowered the group size because things are going wrong here at the moment. He lowered the allowed group size from 10, which is what we were working with, to 5. Now this hike is not in Denver. It's 20 miles, 30 miles south of here, but most of the people on the hike were going to be coming from Denver. So as far as we were concerned, we had a limit of 5 people. And we canceled. Just plain and simple. So I think we should be following the more stringent of local rules or the CDC.
Yeah, Gene, that's a good point. And we've been dealing with that, in where with my work outside of Pilgrims in the Navy, with all the people traveling to all the different locations around the country. That's one of the more difficult things, is to keep up on the constantly changing requirements. So you bring up a good point there, in that before any activity, even after one's been advertised, it's a good idea to keep checking that local guidance, because even in the state guidance, because given the rapidly changing situation, a lot of times the rules are pretty fluid. So good point.
Well, we in Anchorage did our hike a little differently, is that we picked a location, which was a lake, about a 2-hour walk on an old road up in the state park. But we just put out a thing saying there's going to be cafe con leche and some pastries from anytime from 10 o'clock until 2 o'clock. And everybody just came on their own. They nicely spread it out. And at any given time, we maybe had 3 groups of people that came, and then we set up our stove and made instant coffee for everybody, and I made some cinnamon rolls, and it was great. The weather was hideous, but we had a good turnout. Everybody came just on their own or with their partner, and if we had a group, I think we had about 5 at one point. Some more people came, and the people that had been there for a while left. So it sort of turned over, and it was nice because we didn't have to worry about what the group size was. Everybody just got there on their own, and we gave out coffee to just random people. Had nothing to do with the Pilgrims, and hopefully got some new members.
That's great.
I'd like to ask a question about Zoom. well, one of our chapter coordinators has a paid account. And so if she is the host, then we're not limited to the 40 minutes. I think the other, at least I do not have a paid account. So if I'm a host, we are either cut off or we have to restart. Would there be a mechanism for the national to buy an account? I'm not quite sure how that would work with all the chapters. If somebody created an event under that umbrella and had a unique password, that might make it work so that only that chapter would come alive, if you will, at that time. I've been sitting here thinking about this while we've been talking, and I'm not sure if that would work, but it might be something for the national to think about.
We actually had that conversation during our last executive call, where that idea came up, and so one of the things I think we need to do is go, like you said, go take a look at how that might work with such a large number of people needing access. I know there are mechanisms for having multiple hosts and things like that to eliminate conflicts, but that all comes at a compounding cost. So we took a commitment out of our last executive call to do that research, and so we're going to have that discussion at the board meeting. And once we have that discussion, we'll put that in our next update. I'll make a note here, and we'll put it in our next update so folks can understand where we come out on that.
I will tell you.
I'll tell you that my husband and I, we have a premium account that we use for our charitable work, because all of everything we do pretty much now, if it's going to continue to be done, has to be done over Zoom meetings. So we're just considering it our charity work. So the Pilgrim, and I have to still coordinate with him on scheduling. So just to give but it's not as it's nice to have, you can have the extended meetings, and it's nice to have it in the back pocket. And it would be nice if there was a way, but I can see where it would get very complex. Trying to coordinate scheduling.
I think Joyce may have a comment.
Hi, I want to say I'm doing that right now from a different perspective. I'm a United Methodist pastor here out in Denver, and our conference office has a Zoom account, and it's available to all the churches in a tri-state area. And so how they've taught me to use it is I've got the password, and I go on there and I just schedule my own meetings, and other people schedule their own meetings. And I've not had a problem yet. It's been wonderful. Just FYI.
May I jump in here? David?
Sure, good.
All right, so there was a question came up on the chapter's Facebook page about this. Lori Ferris and Jim Martin brought it up, and that spurred me to do some research. And this is what I brought this to Dave, and as Dave said, we're going to talk about it and make a decision in the upcoming board meeting. So basically, for what we're looking at, if we were to put out a single license, you can do a host, meaning if you had someone with the same password sign in or login, you can have two concurrent meetings at a time. Okay, so what we're looking at is, okay, what would we mean in terms of usage, and how would that be divvied up? So in other words, if we just had one license, we'd have 60 chapters. That would be the only thing that would be limited to is no more than 2 chapters could have a Zoom meeting at the same time on the same day. Okay. And then the other issue is the administrative side of this, which is the calendar and managing the meeting calendar. And, I don't necessarily, the way we do it at the board is we're a lot smaller group. There's only 11 of us. So I would just be, one of the concerns I have is people would be tripping over themselves and the calendar would get messy and it might be difficult. So we may have to have someone step in and manage that or not. I don't know, but that's one of the concerns that's out there is given that there's 60 chapters. But as someone said, if you have multiple people, you can use one license and basically it's fairly cost effective. I'm not suggesting or advocating that we only limit it to one license, but it's some thinking that we have to think about and do. But certainly, given where we are in the environment and the fact that people like to use it and hope to keep pilgrims engaged and people interested, it's certainly something that we're seriously considering taking on. Is that fair, Dave?
Bill, your volume is really low. People are they're posting in chat that it's difficult to hear you.
All right, let me try turning it up. How's that?
Raise lips.
Better? Better?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's better.
Is that better? Okay, good. I have headphones on, so there's a microphone, so it might be that it's just so far away.
Hi, this is Donna from Southeast Virginia. Real quick on the Zoom, I just went and sprang to get a Pro. Am I muted? You can hear me.
No, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anyways, there's a big sale on. It's 20% off. I think it cost me $119. To me, it's worth it. Tomorrow we're gonna try a happy hour Zoom at 5 o'clock. And I think, and we'll want to go more than 40 minutes. So if you're thinking about it, take advantage of the sale, but in a year it will go up to the regular cost. So you have to make sure that you cancel it or do something else, because then it's
We'll feed in a year, we won't have to do it.
Pardon?
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that there are a number of chapters that have already bit the bullet, to so to speak, and actually acquired their own, or they're using a business one or business account or something along those lines. So there are some chapters that have just basically taken it on their own to get their own account. So
yeah, I have a member who has a GoToMeeting license, and he just schedules our GoToMeeting. So I have one in the morning from 8:30 to 9:30, and he scheduled us through the end of the year.
Right, and Zoom isn't the only player out there that like David,
Right.
as you said, there are other applications that people can use. Facebook being one, Skype being another. So there are other choices out there.
Yeah,
and certainly Zoom is a popular one. So
I should recognize the lady Jackson Kerr, who I listened to today on her Dan Mullins interview.
Oh, there you go.
Very
Hi,
nice.
David. Sorry, I'm late. We Richard and I misread the email.
Now that happens. I've listened to Amy Horton too. There have been
Hers is
several
good.
Several
hers is
American
really great.
pilgrims. Dan went on and on about that gathering. He just
Aw.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah. I'm sad I missed him.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Or I would like to remind people to read the La Concha. I haven't gotten through all of it. It's quite a big newspaper now, practically a magazine. Calling it a magazine, but
through the COVID era here, the submissions have gone through the roof, and so Barb has worked with a new designer and publisher that is I think put together a pretty incredible product there. I told her recently, between her and the team, they have really just stepped it up time after time. So I've been pretty impressed with the work they've done there.
Yeah, it's terrific.
The other area I think that's gone really well, or that's going really well right now, is if you go look at the Facebook community. I think they've demonstrated some incredible creativity, both the administrators and the folks posting on there. We've seen a number of virtual Caminos on there. I like the questions that they pop up and say, hey, tell me one experience you had that really had an impact on you, and you go read down through those submissions. and you get some really good stories there. So I think the Facebook community has done just an incredible job at sort of keeping that Camino spirit alive while we can't be there, in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. My experience with Facebook was that, I put together our MailChimp notices, and I kept forgetting to put it on Facebook too. And finally, one of our members said, would you like me to take over the Facebook? Oh yeah, that's really helped. So, look within your chapter as far as communicating. There's maybe somebody who wouldn't mind doing that. Some people just don't, and I've got some members who will not do Facebook. They are proud of not doing Facebook, and there's just so much. There's so much there, and Annie O'Neill's Pilgrimage in Places there.
Right.
So that's been a delightful Saturday session too.
Well, Jackie, I think, what did you call some of those things? You called the Camino in one of our last phone calls. What is it? What did you say? A delightful distraction? Or
Did I say that? I don't remember.
I love it. Yeah, that's good. A welcome reprieve from some of the other things you're seeing on social media and other things these days.
Yeah, true.
Hey, Dave, I wonder if you could share the board's thinking about grants for the coming year, because, the situation has changed. I'm sure there's a lot of albergues who are, struggling to get by, and grants are a very popular thing that we do, but also you got to have the money to do it. So how y'all wrestling with that?
That's a really good question. The grants team last year, I think, administered 17 grants. And there was a little bit higher demand than that, even from the folks in Spain. And we were wondering what the impact of it would be on those projects. Would those projects go forward? Would they fold and send the money back? How would that play out? And I tell you, the demand stayed right where, maybe even went up a little. And so the demand remained. In some places, I think they took an opportunity as the population on the Camino has come down to go actually execute some of these things. And so we're looking forward this time, as those projects get executed, they're asking them to take some videos and things so that we can share those on Facebook and other on the website and other places, so that we can show folks, where that's going. Now, I think last year, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we administered $55,000 in grants last year. As I said before, with membership numbers and trends in donations right now, they're a little bit lower than maybe we anticipated, when last year. So compared to last year, I think we're looking at grants coming down. But one thing we're hoping to do as we approach the end of the year, we're going to work on our end of year appeals to membership to help support the Camino and advertise some of those things that we're going to need, because I do think we're going to see a dip this next year. If you look back historically, our numbers have gone up and down relative to those donations, but I'm thinking, I suspect folks are going to step up and help us out there, and we're going to be able to react to that and increase the donation number or the grants numbers as we approach, because we advertise and start making those notifications in the springtime, and as we go through the year, we can increase it if we see that support level go up. Bill, do you have anything to add to that? I know you've been heavily involved in setting that budget.
No, I mean, I think you covered it, Dave. I think it's, like you said, it's really reliant upon how things shake out with regard to support going forward over the coming year. I think the other thing I would only add to that was that I think we're trying to be as flexible as we can to make sure we maximize what we can do relative from a financial perspective. I think that's probably the overarching concept, is we're going to try to build some flexibility so that we can hopefully help out as much as we can in that regard.
Yeah, and that's sort of, you talk about what sort of, where's the board, the board's sort of mindset on this is we want to support the Camino as much as we can. And so I think, you're going to see some outreach to support that, through our end of year messages. you're also going to see, I think, as we get the grants proposals in, we're going to try to do a little bit of work to advertise what those projects are, and sort of make it real for folks, and ask for support going forward. And like Bill said, we're building some flexibility in there so that if we see the investments and we see the donations and memberships go in a positive direction, then we can surge that money towards additional projects as we go through the year.
So I have so we have I've been kind of working out this project here. We have, so we that I would like to, it's that I could turn into into a walk, that I want to include a charitable aspect to it. And my thought is that that charitable aspect would be donations to the grant program, because it's a pilgrim thing. And I haven't been able to get a, that's okay, that's not okay. But I think that if we have good information on what the grants program does and how we can sell that, I want, if people want to do this walk, then give us $20 and we'll send it on to the grants program. So I don't think it's going to happen this year. At best, it'll happen at Dias de los Muertos in 2021 or 2020. Yeah, 2021. But I think that we can, as chapter coordinators, we can think about this in the bigger picture. I mean, how many walks have we gone on that are charitable walks, right?
The one thing you bring up one of the challenges that that comes up routinely among the board discussions as well is fundraising, right? And so being a national nonprofit and having to do this through 50 states, one of the big challenges there, especially for us, the smaller staff that we have, or the smaller group of volunteers that we have, is 50 states, you have basically 50 different rules, maybe even 51 different rules. And so trying to figure out and comply with the requirements for soliciting and receiving donations in 50 states is a bit of a challenge. And so currently what we've done, and you'll see maybe in our end of year letters, it's probably not visible, but we have a certain number of states that we send like sort of a direct ask to folks for donations. But then there's a large group of other states where there's specific rules for registration, reporting, collection of taxes. You go through the list of things, and it's too daunting for a small group of volunteers to be able to go handle. So in thinking about how to go raise money for grants and things like that, one of the key things you need to do is coordinate with the right folks on the board to go have those conversations to say, okay, do we understand the registration rules and the requirements for that particular state? Who does that solicitation reach out to? Is it across borders, things like that? We have to work through that very methodically, because I'm gonna give you something that's just my opinion. I think there are national nonprofits that just do sort of a blanket, donate here button on their advertisements or on their websites, and maybe skirt the rules in some cases, and largely maybe don't get caught. But as a board, in order to safeguard sort of the integrity of the organization, we have been very careful to make sure that we are compliant with the requirements for each state. And so that is in some way limited us from maybe things that other organizations might do, or say, oh, just do it, because it's too complicated, you'll never get caught. We've chosen not to do that. We've very deliberately chosen to follow those requirements and make sure we stay within the boundaries. Does that make sense? And Jeff or Bill, did I say anything wrong there?
money.
No, I was on the board and we had these same conversations. And again, we've taken a very conservative approach. But again, this safeguards the integrity of the organization, right? And I know because I work in nonprofits, if we ever got in trouble, the board would get sued. And like, we don't want to get sued. So
Yeah, that's one of those things that I just learned in my career is you always need to know who the jailable official is, and if it's you, you want to be conservative.
But you have to, from a coordinator perspective, I can't fundraise for anybody else. I can't say, put, any money you got, put in the basket here and we'll give it to the food bank. I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I can't give it to you guys. And so I just have a bunch of people wandering around that want to buy t-shirts from me and I can't sell them to them because, it's, I understand you guys' perspective. I really do. And
Sure.
But it's a little on the frustrating side because just figure out some way that I can I can give the money to the food bank. Maybe I just don't tell anybody. That's what I'll do.
So Sharon, one of the states where it is legal and where you don't have to register as a nonprofit is Arizona. And David, Indiana is also one of those states you don't have to register to ask for donations. There are like 16 that we do have permission that we can ask for donations, but the rest are off limits. We would have to do some registration and that would take a lengthy process and it would be expensive to get all of the fees done. But the other question was, where do the funds go? And they are described really well in the La Concha, the 17 organizations that received the grants this past year. And that totaled $55,000, which was given to those 17 grants from the American Pilgrims. Also like to recognize a very generous offer from Mike Garner there in Charlotte. Mike, when we were in Tahoe, he so nicely volunteered to put together a video and Ruben, who's in charge of the grants from our board, is requesting the grant recipients to submit videos. And Mike, you're still on board to put those videos together. And this next time around, when we ask people to ask for their applications for grants, we're also going to make sure that they are willing and expected to give a video that Mike can work with so everybody can see where those dollars are going and to see where the improvements are. And thank you, Mike, for that.
Yes, the documentation is there. On what, but it's not, it's not a very sexy presentation of what the money's going for. And so the video would be helpful. It would, yeah.
Sharon,
Thanks.
are you aware of the one? Sharon, are you aware of the video that's on our YouTube channel?
Yes, I am.
Is
Yeah.
that the one? Okay.
Yeah.
Also, if you'd like an overview, go to the website and find the grants page.
Yeah.
Yes, I've read that. And I'm just looking at a way to market this to better fundraise for the effort. It's not a real fundraiser.
Yeah, that is something we're talking about, is how to better present the grants to make it clear what it's going for and the benefit that it provides. And so we are working to provide some additional content, whether it's in the form of videos or other documentation that you can easily then go use to advertise what's being accomplished. So we're right on board.
Only in states where it's okay.
Well, with that for direct solicitation of donations, right? Exactly.
So quick question, this is Sandra with Tampa Bay. Taking all of that into consideration and knowing that we're limited on the quantity of funds that we're able to maintain in our petty cash bank, if you will, for those individuals that are wanting to donate larger sums, is there a way that they can donate directly through American Pilgrims on the Camino webpage as opposed to going through one of the chapters? And is that an option in order to steer those individuals that are wanting to make a difference on the Camino without having to meet the requirements of each state.
Yeah. Bill, you want to address that one, or Tom, either one?
Yes, you can direct them and ask that there is I believe on our webpage, a way to donate, make a donation. I'll have to look for it, but I'm pretty sure it's there.
There is, because you can make a donation for, when you order your credentials, you can make a donation.
Right, right. So there is a way to that you can ask, tell people, if you do want to do that, you can go to our webpage, and I'm happy we can supply you with the link. Yeah, so there is a mechanism of, online mechanism to do that.
I have had several pilgrims want to give to the Camino because they can't go, and they know the sort of stress that Spain has been under in those communities. And so they've really sought that out. So yes, I did do some poking around, and I found it's not easy. It's not as easy as it should be to accept money, a direct donation. But that's the avenue that I was going to try to use. But yeah, people desperately want to support the Camino, however they could possibly can.
Yeah, and Jeff, I think Jeff, you posted, I see in the chat box there, the link for the donation, so that folks can use that. Thanks.
So what about the option of, if you're doing your charitable event, having a laptop set up where people can themselves go in and do their donation without you having to punch in a credit card or number or anything like that? So you could have that available during the event and say, if you would like to donate, click here and go ahead and do your donation. And then you're not handling anybody's credit cards, you're not handling anybody's information, and it's going through a secure service. So it takes you out as the middleman.
It's the question of solicitation. If at an event we are encouraging them, then that might be considered. That's the sticky bit. And
one of our board members has legal background, and we look at her for our legal advice, and we drive her nuts routinely with hey, what if we call it? But no, I think you're on a track there that's reasonable from the standpoint of, if somebody wants to know how to make a donation to American Pilgrims and you're not soliciting them to make that donation, showing them how to do it, I don't think crosses that boundary, right? Because you're facilitating it, and you're saying, hey, here's how I did it. If you're interested, here it is. But we can't make a direct solicitation in a lot of states, to your point. So some of it's how you approach it, right?
Dave, this is Susan Peacock in Jacksonville. And did I understand when you were talking about the grants that, in the past, y'all have decided on the grants, and then we find out what the grants were made to? Did I hear you say that y'all might decide where you want to put money, and then people could see that ahead of time? I know that's really hard to do, but the reason why I thought about that is because a lot of you know about EVARS, the Camino Forum, and on there they have let albergues and businesses come in and ask, write a plea about why they need money. I've given to a lot of them on a regular basis because my heart knows them. I can relate to them. And so my thought was, if there was some way that people could see at least some of the grants that y'all are wanting to support, it might encourage them to give to those.
Yeah, that's a good point. We haven't decided exactly how to go advertise that, but we've been discussing how do we go communicate grants more effectively. And so the way I was thinking about it initially is, without sharing too much information from the grant, the people submitting the grant proposals to us, because some of that information, we got to be careful with what we distribute. But I think giving folks some idea of the scope and scale of the proposed projects, the types of projects, that sort of thing, will give folks insight into what is it the folks in Spain that are submitting these, concerned about? What are they interested in? What are they trying to do in order to get ready for, the sort of that probably inevitable post-pandemic surge that the Camino is going to see, particularly with, the way the Holy Year has been, adjusted to accommodate this. So I think we are trying, to your point, we're trying to find a good way to communicate to people what's needed and spark that reaction of, hey, that's something I really want to support, and that's something I can really get behind. So we're gonna continue those conversations at this next board meeting and find a way to go do that.
Can I dive in somehow? No, I guess not. Hello.
Yes, John?
Hey, I just have a couple of points from the previous discussions. Number one, I've been with a lot of nonprofits in my life, and we always carried an insurance policy for the board members, and they're readily available. They're dirt cheap, a couple $100 a year, and usually we took it to $1 million. It's kind of a done deal. Number two, about donations. I mean, if we go and say we have, I don't know, a potluck with, auctions and stuff like that. After we collect the money, we could just donate it straight to you. I think you're making the donation part just a little bit too complicated. That's just me. I like the simple answers. And number three, about the grants, I really like if you would let us look at it before you give the grants out, because I know a number of the people here have been hospitaleros who may have served at some of the places where you're looking at giving grants, and I think they would be able to provide some really good insight into what they experienced there and how really appropriate it was for the grant. That's it. I'm done.
Okay, no, that's good. And to your point on insurance, yeah, the board does have an insurance policy. So
okay, good.
Covered. I hope never to exercise it.
36 years with one of the groups, we've never had to use it.
Right. It's one of those things where you don't need it until you need it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I've had to use it. It's not fun.
Sure, exactly. And to your point on the donations, just to not skip over that, that one of the things that we should continue that conversation. Maybe I'll talk to you independently to pick your brain on that. Based on your experience, I would like to keep that conversation going. It's something we always, like Jeff said, it's been a sort of a perennial discussion. And as we go forward, I think it's important to keep figuring out, are there things we can do? Are there things we're not doing that we should be doing? That sort of thing. And what is the level of risk we're willing to accept? And so yeah, I may call you separately and pick your brain on that.
And the point about using hospitaleros as a source for that information, it would be good too, if we ever get back to do that. When I was hospitalero in Nájera, I looked around there and just didn't really see anything that they needed. I mean, that was a real well-run organization there. Didn't have anything to do with me, but I thought, is there anything that this place needs? And I couldn't see it. So
yeah,
that's good.
I've done 4 different albergues in my life, and a couple of them were really, really together, municipally supported, and they didn't need anything. The ones who were parochially supported could have used a little help, especially Fonte Badal.
Sure.
Well, the question I have, Dave, is your thought regarding the grant program. What I was getting was that you were thinking about how would you communicate once the grants were already established. In other words, once the selection process by the grant committee, the people doing it, and then to let members know, okay, here's what we got. We got this going on, we got with this, and you can identify and communicate it that way. Personally, and getting too deep in the weeds here, I think to open that up to a lot of other people. If you're interested in being on the grant committee, volunteer to be on the grant committee to make a decision. I think it would just be too hard to do that. But I do agree with the communication aspect of letting people know this is what's going on. This is what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I think it's a two-pronged. We're looking at it in a two-pronged way. The first way is what you're talking about, which is once the grants are awarded, go off and advertise and let people know, hey, here's the organizations benefiting from the grants. But I also think there's an opportunity on the front end once we know what the types of grant proposals are, is talking about that type of information. Maybe not the specifics, because we don't want to release necessarily some specific information, some pieces of it, but I think we can talk about, hey, these are the types of projects that are out there that we're considering supporting, and if we have the funds, we can support more of those. And using that information to share with folks, to let them know what the possibilities are, to spark sort of that, hey, that's something I really want to support, and allow us to expand maybe what we're planning on giving for grants into something larger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I saw a question up here. It said, and hey, Tom, are you here? Are you there, Tom? I see his thing there. I think he might have stepped away.
Yes, I'm
Oh,
here.
there you are. And so this is a question for you, Tom. It says, what are the special dates, let me see, that are Camino related that we can celebrate with our chapters, like St. James Day? Also, has the Holy Year been definitely extended to include 2022? Do you have any information on that?
Sure. As of right now, we will be doing a regional gathering, but all are invited. It will be a celebration of the Camino and St. James Feast Day. It will be July 23rd through the 26th. It will be on the campus of St. Mary's College, right there next to the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. There's a lot of good transportation directly into South Bend from many different cities around the country. And there is a celebration team, and several members of that team are on this call today. So if you are interested, we would love to have you join us. We hope that everything can proceed as planned for this July. Also, there has been no answer from the Pope. I guess he's been busy doing some other things here lately, but he has not decided whether he is going to extend the official Holy Year, which is an inclusion of a plenary indulgence for Catholics that would be walking the Camino in a Holy Year, which always, as everyone knows, takes place in a year that the St. James Feast Day is on a Sunday, as it will next year. So we plan on celebrating, though, in South Bend, Indiana, and all are welcome, and as are your participants in your chapters.
Very good. Yeah, that St. James Day celebration, that's something new, that there's a large team of volunteers working on diligently to pull off. And so it's going to be something it's going to be something distinctly different from a gathering. So the gathering, I think, for those of you that have been on those, there's a pretty familiar format to those. A lot of sort of sit down, listen to lectures, things like that. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but the target of this celebration are things that are more active and sort of where you're participating in it. We're trying to, I know the team is working hard to make sure that it's compatible with social distancing, if we still have some of those concerns that are going on.
Yes.
But it's really going to be something, I've been listening to the planning on that, and it's really going to be something special. So I would encourage you, we'll continue to put out information on that as conditions continue to change and as planning continues. Tom, anything additional there?
I'm just going to say that every day there will be a choice of 4 different walks, and they'll be going in 4 different directions. And each walk you get to choose from, that'll make it more socially distant and acceptable as far as safety. And each one of those hikes is going to be very different. That'll be every single day. There'll be entertainment. There'll be Dave Cook is on board to get us some excellent Spanish wine to make it a great celebration. The city of South Bend is going to donate fireworks for the celebration. And there will be a lot of social distancing there on the St. Mary's campus. We'll be staying in a dormitory that is about 100 years old and modeled after a French castle with real French architecture. And I think it's going to be an exceptional event. Again, July the 23rd through the 26th. Bill is on board helping us with finances. Sharon has given us input as far as with services. And I'll bet I'm not St. Paul from South Bend is helping us with some service projects that participants are going to be able to work on. So it'll be a lot of fun. There'll be Spanish food at the cafeteria there at St. Mary's College. And we just hope that things become a little bit more safer so that we can do this in good shape come July.
Very good. Thanks a lot. What other questions do we have out there?
Oh, hearing none.
Have we worn you out?
A motion to adjourn is always in order.
David, this is Josie from North Texas. And I just wanted to tell you how happy we are that Allison Venuto from in Dallas has joined the board. You've got a good guy there.
Very good. No, yeah. Well, we have Megan, Jackie, and Allison all joined the board in July, and I'll tell you, they jumped in with both feet. A lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, and yeah, the one thing we're looking forward to is getting everybody together one of these days and being able to meet in person and spend a little bit more time together. But I tell you, they're a huge addition to the board. And the interesting thing there is they were selected from among a pool of some incredibly talented folks. We sent out obviously the solicitation for folks that were interested to a wide, to the membership essentially. And I always chuckle a little bit because you get folks that because on our Neon CRM system, it'll send it to you by your first name. They'll say, I can't believe you think I'm qualified to be on the board. What were you thinking? And so, but we got, I think, Tom, I'm trying to remember, we had like 30 or so applicants.
Yeah, between 30 and 40. You're right.
Yeah. So, and you read through those applicants and those resumes, and it's just what an incredibly talented bunch. And so those three were selected from a pool of a lot of highly qualified candidates. And so we're just happy to have them on board. Now, we talk about the board a lot with, those 11 people, but I'll tell you the thing to keep in mind, obviously there's 152, I think right now, chapter coordinator volunteers, all the key volunteers associated with Facebook, key volunteers associated with grants, hospitalero training, external relations, the folks over in Spain that help out. We remain, several former board members remain captured and are helping out in various capacities. Cheryl, Jeff, others. So I'll tell you, in order to make the organization tick, this is what makes this organization special. Is it's an all volunteer effort, and it's incredible. It's almost eye watering how much effort and goes into all this. But
Dave, I just was going to add that the real lifeblood is right here on the Zoom meeting, the chapter coordinators and the chapters that reach out to all the different participants from around the country. If it wasn't for these dedicated chapter coordinators, we wouldn't have the lifeblood for the American Pilgrims. So
absolutely.
Real appreciation to every single one of you for everything that you do in your local communities to promote the American Pilgrims on the Camino.
Absolutely. And whenever we put out advertisements for, hey, we need this or we need that, or hey, if somebody's interested in doing this, people jump right in. And so it's just a great community to be a part of. And definitely thank you all for your efforts.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of, we've got the chapter coaches who, if they don't know the answer, they'll find someone who has the answer for you. So just give us your questions, yeah?
Two other volunteers I want to call out really quick that I think most of you know, but just I'll call your attention to him is Gene, our webmaster. He he has done an incredible job and he helped take us through this transition from the old system to the new system, and just done a wonderful job continuing to do that every day. And then behind the scenes, I'll tell you, we couldn't survive right now without Zeta Macy working with membership and doing a lot of the administrative tasks that keep things cruising along. So those two key volunteers are really something, and couldn't do it without them.
Okay.
What else you got there, Dave?
That's all I've got.
Can I just ask a quick question? And I may have missed it, I apologize.
Sure.
If you want to keep up with information about the event at St. Mary's, the celebration in July, will we be getting it on where will we get that information?
There is a nice little article in La Concha.
Okay, I haven't gone through it all yet, so, okay, that's good.
Yeah, so the places you'll see that are La Concha. After the board meeting in October, we're going to put together another little video and an update of things we're working on and some of the conclusions from the meeting. And we'll have definitely some information in there about the gathering and or the celebration. And then going forward, those will be the venues that we communicate that.
All right, thank you.
I have
Thanks
a
a lot.
question. Is there any hospitalero trainings being scheduled at all since we're not having a gathering?
Yeah, not right now. The currently Hospitalero training is suspended. As we're preparing the budget for 2021, we are putting setting aside, making sure we have funding in the budget that'll support that. The resumption of training should it come to pass. But they've been monitoring conditions very carefully and communicating with the folks in Spain. And right now they're not. They're recommending obviously that folks not come. And so as soon as those indicators start showing that we may that demand signal may open back up again, then we'll start that training right back up.
Dave, I believe that they suspended any hospitalero training until the summer of 2021.
Yeah.
And they would consider the first possible safe one might be if things open up and improve for July at the gathering, or not the gathering, the regional celebration in South Bend in July. And we have picked a location that would be very suitable for the hospitalero training, and it could be held adjacent to the celebration in July.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll continue to monitor those conditions and keep folks informed of that. Anything else? Well, it's good. It's good. It's good to see everybody again. Frank, happy to see you there. How you feeling? Very good. Some people are dropping off, so the screens are starting to pop in here. Very good. No, it's really good to see everybody. So is that all we got, Dave?
I think that's it.
Sounds good. All right. We'll see everybody again. Well, this was good. I hope we do this again.
Thanks, everybody.
It was good. Thank you.
Buen camino.
Good to see everybody.
Bye-bye.